Morena whānau, nera taku mi ki a koutou, kia ora. Hey, so for Movie May this year, I chose to actually do a movie that was made in Aotearoa. And it's a movie that speaks about, it's called Broken. And I know that there's been many a times in my life where I felt I've been broken. Physically, mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. So I sort of thought, you know, for my attempt with Movie May, that I'd actually do something that spoke about my spirit, who I am, where I've come from. Sorry, I forgot to do the spoiler alert. You've probably seen most of the movie now if you haven't already seen it. But the idea was to give you to introduce and for those who haven't actually seen Broken yet, to sort of get the gist of the movie and what its theme is and what it's about. This movie was made back in 2018, and it was actually made by a church denomination in Auckland, who are known as City Impact Church. So the whole idea of this story was birthed from another story that happened over 100 years ago in our history here in Aotearoa. So it talks about, the theme of the movie talks about, and the trailer it sort of shows you and talks about what it means to go through the process of finding redemption, of finding forgiveness, but ultimately of finding who you are as God's creation. So with that, I'd like to head into the thrust of what I want to talk about today. This movie, it's about tragedy. It's about betrayal. It's about vengeance. It's about forgiveness. But ultimately, it's about redemption. Isn't that so true about our own lives, our own story? Ultimately, it's all about our redemption. That's what this is all about. In this movie, it's set down in Gisborne, down in Gisborne, just outside there. And the idea, the message of the story was about a story that happened closer to home, actually closer to where we are, that happened in Rotorua. So what happened was back in 1836, there was a Māori missionary. She wasn't actually a missionary at that time, but what she was she was being taught by the missionaries how to read and how to write and how to speak. One of the things that she was given, or as she was very diligent in being able to read, they gave her a gift, and the gift they gave her was the book of Luke, the Gospel of Luke. And what happened was she took this gospel and she used to read it to her whānau. None of her whānau could read. So she would take the book of Luke, which was written in te reo Māori, because back in those days, most of your books, actually it was more than half and half, were in te reo, because that was the most dominant spoken language at that time, prior to the signing of the Treaty of Te Tiriti o Waitangi. So she took this book and she would read it to her whānau. Her father was the chief of that whānau, and he was captivated by the story of Luke, and he was captivated by the idea of this thing called forgiveness, because within Māoridom, we weren't really that forgiving, if I'm being honest. In fact, we were quite known for our ferocity and being a bit more fierce and wanting to stand up and argue. Actually, I still see a bit of that in my whānau, actually, a bit of standing up and arguing. Want to sort of defend our thoughts and our ideas and our space. And so what would happen is if there was, in Māoridom, if there was an atrocity or there was a grievance done to another person in the tribe or to another tribe, we would have what was called utu. Utu was, the easiest way to explain it is revenge. So Māori were very much eye for an eye. If you do unwell to me, I will do unwell to you. And I will and not only do unwell to you, I'll make sure that you will learn the lesson not to do that again. So it was very much an eye for an eye. So prior to that time, Māori were quite entrenched in this idea of what we call our tikanga, our ways of doing things. They were quite entrenched in these fields. What happened was she took the book and she read it to her whānau. And her father, who was chief, he was just taken by this whole concept, idea of forgiveness, which is what he took away from the book of Luke, was this whole idea of being able to forgive one another, to forgive someone. Unbeknown to him, what had happened was they needed to move from where they were. So they were over in, if anyone knows where Morrinsville is, Ngāti Haua, they were over there. And they had to relocate over to Tauranga. And the reason was there was actually warring going on in that area. And her father decided, no, kia tau, we're not going to actually be a part of this. We're going to move with the missionaries. On their way moving, they hit basically where Rotorua is, and they made camp. But what happened was there was a raiding party from Te Arawa, Rotorua, who actually came through and chased them. They all got up and left, but unbeknown to them, they had actually left the chief had left his 12-year-old daughter behind in the confusion of everyone getting out. As the raiding party come through, they basically, they killed her, took her life. And her father, after the raids had gone through, came back to check on and found out that she was the only one that was there and she was dead. And so her father and her iwi were so bereaved. They were like the young warriors, they were getting ready to go to war. But he put up his hand and he said, kia tau. Kia tau, which means we're not going to do that. And the reason he said that was because of the book of Luke she had around her neck that she would read to her family. He said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to go to war. Despite what's gone on, we're not going to do that. And so as the story unfolds, and I'll sort of point back to it as I go through the clips, you'll sort of see parts. I'll tell you a little bit more of the story as it comes into being. But here's our second clip for today.
Just what Mr. Mix means is that Jeffrey's not feeling well right now, and it's just not the best time for us to have skills.
Mr. Banks, I'll do whatever Jeffrey did. Jeffrey B.
Tori? Hello? Who is this? Come on, girl. Pick up.
Hi, Tori here. Sorry, can't come.
Damn it. You okay?
They were looking for you. I told them I didn't know where you were, but they're hard of hearing. Where's Tori?
We gotta get you to the hospital.
Logan, they hunt in packs. Where's Tori?
I don't know. I've looked for her everywhere. She should be at home.
Then that's exactly where you should be. Go, I'm fine.
Call the cops. Send them to my place.
Hi, Tori here. Sorry, can't come right now. Hello?
Tori, listen. I need you to lock all the doors.
Dad, where are you?
All the doors, Tori.
What's
Do
going on?
exactly what I say. Lock the doors.
Okay. Doors are locked.
Good. Need you to check out front. See if any cars are there.
There's someone there.
Are you sure?
Dad, what's going on?
Tori!
What do you want?
Tori! Tori!
Let me go.
Did you, Logan?
I swear to God, if you touch her,
It's a bit late for them, don't you think?
Dad, Dad's got a gun.
Tori, it's gonna be okay.
Listen, buddy. This is really going to be okay. You better start talking.
Whatever it is you're after, I don't have it.
You know, Logan, you really shouldn't leave little girls at home all on their own.
Listen,
Close your eyes, sweetheart.
Dad, I love you.
listen, I'm telling you, I don't have it.
We'll see you soon, Logan.
Tori!
Where's her necklace?
I don't know. Thank you for coming. I know Tori meant a lot to you. Tori was a good girl. She was good to those around her, even when they weren't good to her. She deserved a better life than the one I gave her. She deserved a better death than the one they gave her.
Okay, everyone, let's finish with a karakia. E tō mātou e te rangi, kia tape tō ingoa. Ke tai mai tō rangi tiratanga, kia mea tia tau e pai ai ki runga I te whenua.
That should be me lying
Tau
there.
hoki e muru nei. E ho te hunga, hara ana ki a mātou.
Every part of me wants them to pay
Ka ora,
for what they did to her.
kia whakawai, ngāri whakaonia mai mātou. Te kina.
And they will
ki te
pay.
tiratanga. Te kaha, me te kororia. Ake, ake, ake. Amen.
That's all about tragedy. We all have suffered some form of tragedy in our life. Whether it be a sense of loss, whether it be something taken from us, or whether it be a thing that we haven't been able to resolve in our life to make us who we are, whole and complete. You see, the very nature of tragedy, it affects our being, it affects who we are. And the reason it affects us is because it causes trauma. Trauma is defined as something you can't resolve within yourself. That's trauma. For some of us, it could be just as small as being called a little name when you were a youngster. That's a trauma I suffered. For some of us, it could be just being ignored when I was at school by others. That can cause trauma. This tragedy caused huge trauma for the father, Logan. Caused huge trauma for the whānau. And the reason it caused trauma is because she had nothing to do with the business of what went on with her father, but she paid the price for his decisions. She paid the price for what he did. And she wasn't, as you see, she wasn't actually meant to be in that position. And you'll see the anguish. When we go through trauma, it causes anguish. It can cause things like anxiety. Trauma can cause us to actually step away when we should be stepping closer. And when I say step closer, I mean stepping closer not only to God, but to one another. This is what we need to do when we encounter trauma. Often we will run. And I'm one of those, whānau, I've been there. I ran for about 20 years of my life. Decided to run and hide, duck and dive, do everything I could because I couldn't cope with the stuff I was trying to resolve within. But trauma will do that to you. Tragedies can bring on trauma. And there are some tragedies, for most tragedies we don't have control over. Whether it be a physical tragedy that might happen, whether it be an earthquake in Christchurch, whether it be an eruption in White Island, whether it be a tsunami that's hit Japan, we might not have control over the tragedies that might come into our life. But what we have to do is we have to try and resolve those tragedies so that we can continue to move forward and to live on. So when I think about this stuff, I think about there's differing degrees, so there's trauma that I can sort of cope with, like it's sort of like, yeah, I didn't appreciate that, but I can move on with that. There are some things that have happened for us in our past where we haven't been able to do that. We actually haven't been able to resolve that. Even there are things that I walk around with today that I still haven't fully resolved. And I've given it to God. And I've asked for his help. But I still struggle with some of them. You know. In saying that, though, the breakthrough has been for the things he has resolved in my life. You know, the mere fact that I'm standing here is testimony to him resolving things in my life. The mere fact that I'm married to my lovely wife is a testimony to God resolving things that have been going on for me in my life. The mere fact that I'm a part of Equippers Taupo is a testimony of God resolving things in my life. The mere fact that I'm standing here before you today and talking about this is a testimony of God resolving things in my life. And whānau, that's what we want for all of us here. We want us all to be free in Christ. And we do that by looking at the tragedies we may have had in our lives, but bringing them to God so that he can start to resolve those things that we're fighting with. You know, so sometimes it could be someone or it could be something that's caused that major trauma. And all we want to do is just like Logan there, is get vengeance on that, you know. And we do that in different ways. Some ways we get vengeance on people is we actually cut them off from our life. We say enough. No, that's it. You're gone. I've had enough. I can't deal with you and I don't want to deal with you anymore. Sometimes the way that we deal with, we show vengeance is then we go the opposite way. We put all their stuff up on Facebook. Yeah. This is what he's really like. I'm telling you now. Yeah, look, here's the photo. See? Told you. So sometimes we might go the other way with the vengeance. We might do the whole, let's put it all out there and let everyone see what's going on. But vengeance is vengeance. Whether it's intended or not, it's still vengeance. And so, as I was going through this movie, it reminded me of some of the vengeful things I used to do. When you're a kid, it's natural to be vengeful, you know. When your brother kicks you, it's natural to punch him, You know, that's just, you know. I didn't see that as vengeance. I just saw that as brother justice. You know, brother justice, that's what it is. You kick me, bam, yeah, there you go. Don't tell Dad, bro, because then we're both going to get a smack. So, but you know, it starts off in those little things. Or vengeance can be like I'm not talking to that one. No, we're going to go over here. Hi. See you later. That's actually a bit of vengeance, whether we choose to acknowledge it or not. So vengeance usually starts off really small. But what happens is, if we allow it to grow, it becomes quite a serious thing for us, where we start to isolate, alienate ourselves and others. So how do we work through, how do we deal with this? So hopefully my third clip will give us a bit of enlightenment on that.
I hear you're good with computers. You reckon you can hack into this? Then get to it. You let me know as soon as you're in it. Crack it. Then we're done here.
Any luck, my bro?
There's a whole bunch of video files here. I'll have to go through them. You can make sure the boys are sorted. The boys make a move, I want to be ready. Close that on your way up.
turned over a new leaf, and I figured now is a great time to start doing this. So yeah, day one. The first day of the rest of my life, I guess. I heard this great quote the other night. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks the door of resentment and the handcuffs of hatred. It is the power that breaks the chains of bitterness and the shackles of selfishness. Man, I definitely know what those chains felt like. I spent most of my life angry and bitter, and it ate me up. But now those chains are gone, and I'm free. Like, truly free.
Something you need to see.
What's this?
Turn it on. Seems Tori had a private YouTube account, some sort of video diary. You hold on to that.
Hi. Well, I'm Victoria, Tori for short. And this is my video diary. But things are getting better around here, you know? I mean, he still blames himself for Mum's death, and fair enough, I guess. You drive drunk and you kill the person next to you. How could you not blame yourself? But I forgive him. I can only hope he learns to forgive himself.
Thanks, mate. Talk.
Coming! I gotta go. See you tomorrow.
There are many ways to find redemption. There are also many ways to overcome adversity. There's many ways to overcome tragedy. Some of the ways we do that is we go to counselling, or sometimes we find support groups. For us, I'd like to think prayer has been a huge part of that. Even when we enter into worship, it's another way we can find wholeness again. In our quiet time, not reflecting on what's right or wrong, but reflecting on what is it that you want to do with me today? What is it that I need to work on with me today? You see, what I find so interesting about all of this stuff is that God has made you all unique. Not two of us are the same. Even identical twins, they find little blemishes on them. So we are all made unique. So that means the way that we process and deal with things is not necessarily going to be the same way that someone else processes or deals with things. But what God says to us is we have to find that way. Because if we don't, then we continue to stay, like Logan, locked up and lost. We continue to stay in a place where we can't resolve the very things that we need to resolve with God. Because He's the one who makes the changes. He's the one, I love this movie, it's called Broken, yet I serve a God who's created a new creation that's standing right before you today. Even though I've been broken, even in my shatteredness, even in my weakness, He still chooses to make me new. He didn't say, I'm going to put you back together and you can hobble around, you're going to be all right. He says, no, I've made you new, a new creation in me. When I was thinking about this message and what I had to do, that's basically the thrust of what I wanted to say. You are a new creation in Christ. He has made you new, despite everything that's happened in your past, whether it be good, whether it be bad, whether it be positive, whether it be negative. He looks at you and He says, you're new. You're new. You're new. You don't have to carry that stuff that you've been carrying. You know, for me, there's been over 20 years of stuff I've been carrying. Still unpacking some of it, if I'm being honest. Still unpacking it. But a lot further on in my journey where I know that God has made me new. Where I can claim that. But I couldn't claim that way back here. All I could claim was, you don't care about me, God. You've put me in this situation. What are you thinking? Far out. You said I'll be able to cope with everything. Well, I'm not coping with everything. And I found it easier to put the blame on him than to realize, actually, you need to go through this because you need to learn some stuff, boy. You actually need to learn some stuff. And if I would have saved you earlier on in the game, guess what? You would have done it again. And guess what? You'd be here again. So I need you to learn that this is actually about me transforming you. And you can blame me as much as you like, but what I see at the end is the new creation that I've made. And that's what I celebrate, whānau. That's what I celebrate, the new creation. So just like then in that scene there, you know, where you have the perpetrator and the father listening to the message of the daughter, telling them that it's all about, for her, it was about forgiveness, forgiving her father, you know, for what happened with her mother, you know, but her prayer was that her father would forgive himself in that process, you know. She spoke to the other gang leader who basically, they were the ones who put the hit on her, sort of indirectly, but that's the gist of it. But she spoke to him in saying that, you know, she's found this new freedom. And that's the freedom we all need to claim, whānau. That's the freedom we all need to claim every day. Whether you're up, whether you're down, you're still free. You're the one that chooses to take it as a negative and feel locked up about it all. You're still free. You're free to go anywhere and to do anything. The difference is whether I think I'm free or not. Because my Father, He's already freed me. He's already freed you. All of yous. And it's whether we choose to keep ourselves locked up, whether we choose to keep ourselves in these chains. Ka pai. I just have one more and then I'll be wrapping it up from there, whānau.
Why don't you run Rob through a circuit?
Guess we both need forgiveness. Toi's videos talked a lot about forgiveness. It wasn't what she said that got me. Just the look in her eyes. She was truly free.
She changed a lot in the last 4 months. She wasn't the same girl anymore.
She discovered the truth.
What truth?
The truth that she was forgiven. And because she was forgiven, she could forgive. and set her free.
I heard this great quote the other night. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks the door of resentment and the handcuffs of hatred. It is the power that breaks the chains of bitterness and the shackles of selfishness. I definitely know what those chains felt like. I spent most of my life angry and bitter, but now those chains are gone. And I'm free. Like, truly free.
I serve a God that is not only loving, but abundant in grace, abundant in mercy, abundant in love. He can soften the hardest heart. He can free us and release us from any bondage that's been holding us. The thing is, God won't force it on us. He won't impose. He actually won't, try and say, come on, let it go, get rid of it. What he does is he just sits there with his son's arms wide open, and he says, I'm ready when you're ready. See, what I don't know is your past or your history, but he does. What I don't know are the challenges that you're facing today, but he does. What I do know is that when you move, he moves. What I do know is that when we respond to him, he responds to us. So I'm going to give us an opportunity now for those of you who wish to respond. And I'm not taking it for granted that everyone in this room might know who this Jesus is that we talk about. But I want to give an opportunity for those who maybe haven't had an encounter with God or haven't had an encounter with Jesus but want that encounter. If that's you, I'm just going to ask everyone else to bow their heads and close their eyes. And if that's you, you just need to put your hand up. If you want to know the God and the Jesus who can free you, who can take the shackles away, who is full of grace and mercy, who is full of love, then all you need to do is just put your hand up and respond. We're not going to take too long, Whānau, but I'm just looking left to right. Thank you. I'd like to finish by praying for us all, so if we could all please stand. Father, I know you are the Redeemer. Father, I know you have a calling on my life. Father, I know that you want to see us whole and complete in you. We are your new creation standing before you now. And so, Father, I pray as we leave from here today, that we can go with hearts resolved in some things. Doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be just one small thing where we've been able to say, God, I give that to you. I surrender that to you. I know that you're big enough to handle, to cope, and to take that. Father, we just acknowledge that as you work in our lives and as we move, you move. And so, whānau, if you want to move today, this morning, feel free to move to the front. Feel free to come and receive. Feel free to be able to experience what it means to be able to lay down some of these things that have been holding us, whether it be for yesterday, whether it be for years. I serve a God that can heal. And I know that healing because I've received that healing.